everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It is great to be back on PowerTube TV with another episode, and we're going to have some fun tonight and learn a few things. We've got two special guests that are going to be joining us. First of all, we are going to talk with Scott Kozak. Scott is the founder of a really cool track directory website called getinthestands.com. And if you have ever been traveling for business or pleasure and you thought to yourself, gosh, I wonder if there's a race somewhere nearby I could go to, well, getinthestands.com will point you in the right direction of all of the tracks in the USA. And Scott Kozak is the founder of that site. We're going to talk to him in a moment. And then our co-host, Tyler Dayton, will join us. And he's going to talk with us about Kyle Larson's waiver and a whole bunch of other topics. And then, unfortunately, later in the show, we have to do a couple of different celebrations of life, paying tribute to two of motorsports' finest who have gone before us. And so we'll start the show here, which, of course, as always, is powered by TrackTune. You'll hear more from them later in the show. Scott Kozak joining us now from getinthestands.com. And Scott, I am curious, what got you into motorsports in the first place? And then tell us a little bit about how you kind of got to a point where you did first a site called racingin.com and then decided to do getinthestands.com.
Well, Tom, first, thank you very much for having me. I've been known you for a few years now and followed since you started this whole Steering Wheel Nation brand. And I love what you're doing to try and bring a lot more grassroots content together.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Sure thing.
You know, the first question, how I got started in motorsports, you know, I traced it all back to when I was 10 or 11. My father worked the pit gates at Stafford Motor Speedway in Connecticut. I was one of those kids that, with my friends, ran around the grandstands and probably annoyed promoters to all ends, and you know, being crazy or whatever. But that was my very first exposure to the world of motorsports. Was, you know, running around when my father was working the pit gate. And that was just a couple of summers when I was an early teen or late single digit kid. And then honestly, from there, I was a NASCAR fan. You know, I was a NASCAR fan growing up, and I root for the number 9 Coors Melling Ford Thunderbird of Bill Elliott. He was one of my favorite drivers at the time, and that goes back when, you know, a NASCAR looked like a production car.
Yeah.
And so that's my roots in motorsports, going back, you know, into the, let's say, mid and late 80s. So that's where it started. But you know, I kind of got out of touch with motorsports when I got into college and ended up in the world of radio in Chicago for a bunch of years. And I ended up getting back into it when our country station in Chicago, this little brand down here, US 99, which is the biggest country station in the nation, decided, hey, we're going to play NASCAR races for Chicago.
Oh, nice.
So that's how I ended up getting back in. And this was a picture from, I think it was a 2005 or 2006 Daytona 500 that the folks at the Motor Racing Network, you know, sent to me when we did that, because we came on board as like 10% increase for the Motor Racing Network at the time, and it was great. NASCAR was in its heyday; It was going crazy, and it was a lot of fun working with Chicagoland Speedway, working really on the biggest of stages that someone could work on at that time. And the folks at NASCAR were great. But so how did that get me to working with small tracks? You know, you wonder. Well, everybody thinks back to when NASCAR started their home tracks program, you know, in 06, 07, 08. And I believe it was 08 that they started running commercials during the Daytona 500 that said, hey, find your NASCAR home track near you and go see some local racing. Those commercials said, go to NASCAR.com and click on the home tracks logo. Well, it was 2008, I believe. I was new to the digital world. Digital world was new to everybody, I think. Websites were kind of new. Not as many people had email addresses. Facebook was an aberration at that point. And I went to NASCAR.com, like this commercial in the Daytona 500 told me to. It took me like 10 minutes to find the button.
Yeah.
And when I found it, there was 30 tracks listed, I think, or maybe 40. And I thought, wait a second, I'm in Chicago. I've got Sycamore Speedway, which is a great dirt track. At the time, we had Maryville Speedway down in Indiana. We
Right.
had Grundy County
Yeah.
Speedway. Lots of tracks, and none of them were listed. And I was like, wait a second. So first of all, that was my first exposure to, okay, NASCAR is a licensing body and so they're a sanctioning body. So they're, selling that home track name or whatever. But I looked around and I was like, you know what? Number one, if NASCAR's telling people go to a grassroots track, they think that's a really good idea because there's tons of smart people at NASCAR. And number two, maybe I should try and find where all these other tracks are listed. And there was no online directory at the time. So everybody had the National Speedway Directory,
Yes.
which, a gentleman by the name of Alan Brown, who unfortunately passed away, I believe it was last year. He published that National Speedway Directory for years.
Yes. Every year.
And I've met people who had every year's in their car or in their truck because they were driving the nation or whatever. And it was like the Bible for people who wanted to go find racetracks.
Yeah.
So, I was a digital guy and I was like, hey, I got to build something like this. So I found a couple of, pieces of directories online that were a little bit out of date. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to build this. So I created what was called then racingin.com. People might have seen this logo. There's what it looks
There
like.
we go.
For
I remember
fans
that.
of fast.
Yep.
That was the original logo. And we created track pages, we created racer pages, and we created fan pages, which was really weird because that was kind of pre-Facebook,
Right.
or ahead. But anyway, long story short, it was a great success. By 2015, we were up to 1.1 million people a year looking for racetracks. That's it, looking for grassroots content. COVID hit. Things kind of fell apart for everybody, and we decided to rebuild it on a mobile-friendly platform. So I've gone on for about 3 minutes here, but long story short, now we're at the point where we will be back to about 500,000 people this year using getinthestands.com to do nothing but enter a place and find a track. And it's that simple. It's not an app. It's a mobile-friendly website that you can save the icon to your home screen of your phone. You don't have to sign in. You don't have to pay anything. You just simply go to getinthestands.com. You enter a city, and you get a list of all the tracks within 100 miles.
Yeah, we've got a link
Pretty
as
simple.
well on the homepage of the Steering Wheel Nation Hub, a link to Get in the Stands, which is Scott's site. And it's a great site because you've got tracks all over the country from go-karts on up that are listed on there. And you can help somebody no matter where they're sitting or where they're driving to. They can just type in their destination or where they are, and it'll pull up tracks in the area, right?
My whole motto is wherever you live or wherever you're traveling to or through, there's a way to find tracks. There's people who don't know that there's a track 20 miles from their house.
Yeah.
And there are people who go on family vacations across the country and who might want to find a track on the way. So we've got track maps for every single state in the United States. If you go to getinthestands.com, you'll see a button on the top that says state track maps. And you just click on a state and you see the list of tracks, and then you can see them on a map if you want to. And it's just a way to visualize where all these tracks are all across the United States.
Yeah, it's really it's a handy piece of software, and it really is a great idea because I know a lot of fans, and even myself sometimes if I'm on the road and I'm going to be staying through a weekend or whatever, sometimes you'd love to just pop into a racetrack you've never been to before and just check out some different action.
And you know what, Tom, for you, because you always do that World Karting Association thing down in Batesville, Mississippi, right?
Yeah, it's not a WK event, but yeah, that's
WKA.
Yep.
Or that karting
Yep.
event. So a dirt track just reopened after being closed for several years called Pine Ridge Motor Speedway, east of just outside of Tupelo. And I actually did a little visit there earlier this year before they reopened, but they have been getting a lot of attention. So a lot of people worry about, hey, racetracks, there's some closing, there's issues, there's Coparts buying up all these tracks and turning them into used car lots and all this other stuff. But there are some really good positive stories out there too. Places like Pine Ridge, places like Millstream in Ohio that are reopening. Newport Speedway in
I was going to
Tennessee.
say, yeah.
That's a high banked asphalt oval that are actually coming back to life.
Yeah.
And that is really cool to see because, you know, the value proposition of grassroots racing for motorsports fans in general is just amazing.
Yeah, we're looking forward to. I'm going to go to Newport here for one of their events and grab some content for us because I want to show that off to people. It's a crazy asphalt racetrack, very fast track, and a lot of fun. And I'm thrilled to see that it is coming back. It's in extreme eastern Tennessee, just over the border from North Carolina. So a lot of fun and glad to see somebody bringing that back. Lonesome Pine up in Virginia just came back. And so there's for every track that leaves, it seems like we got one coming back, which is great.
And that's a different feel than it has been the last few years, you know, with COVID and things like that. When we launched racingin.com in 2008, there was over 1,800 tracks in the directory. Through time and being able to research more, it's down to under 1,300.
Yep.
But, you know, it's a survival of the fittest thing, you know. But it's not just that, it's suburban sprawl and people complaining about noise, you know, in a house that they just built next to a track that's been there for 40 years, you know.
That's a good idea.
All those different things that we worry about. But yeah, there's still, you know, just under 1,300 tracks. Now that includes ovals, asphalt and paved, and dirt.
Yep.
It includes road courses. It includes country clubs. It includes drag strips.
Yep.
It includes a lot of, let's say, county fairgrounds tracks that might only race once or twice a year. But, you know, for special events, we list those tracks because they're real. You know, like DuQuoin Fairgrounds in Illinois, or the Illinois Fairgrounds, where they only have one event a year, and it's a 1 mile American flat track motorcycle racing. Those tracks, they may not be weekly tracks, but they host events still, and that's why we list them.
No, it's great. I mean, you came up with a great idea to digitize basically the Speedway directory is really, but you've got other things on there as well, and a lot of opportunity for fans or racing people in general just to kind of go and engage with it, and see what's on there, and everything's free.
It is, and I call it. I have this concept. I call it the GITS Bridge. GITS, GITS, for Get in the Stands, the GITS Bridge. So every single one of those racetracks in that directory has the opportunity to simply claim that listing at absolutely no cost. A lot of the tracks are you know, it's, you log in, you'll see a map with Google directions to be able to get there, a short description. But what we want is tracks to claim their listing so that they can add their phone number, so that they can add their web link, so that they can add their social media channels. And that's 100% free for racetracks to do, because we spend our marketing money getting people to the site so that they can learn how much motorsports there is all across the United States. I want nothing more than to send those people off to Millstream or to Lonesome Pine or to Pine Ridge or wherever, because, you know, they need to survive. They need the
absolutely
people. And that's what we do. It's 100% free for tracks to claim that listing. It takes them maybe 10 minutes to do. It's a little couple of web forms that they just add their web links and their logo and an image, and they can post their news, and then we redistribute it. You know, Tom, you've been in the PR game for a long time. and you remember an era where racetracks would write press releases and they would send them out to 50 or 60 people and hope that they got covered, right? And how many would get picked up? Or, you know, who knows? Unfortunately, fewer tracks do that nowadays, but this is what came from this whole thing, is at absolutely no cost. We can guarantee that a track's press release is going to be a part of their profile just by them cutting and pasting it, and then we share it with our 63,000 people in social media, and we get the word out to our email database and to our social media following. You post it, we promote it. The content, yes, it helps me get people to get in the stands, but having that content and letting people be able to connect and understand what's going on at a local track with 5 classes of racing, that's so much fun and excitement for that family with that 10-year-old me who wants to run around and look and go, oh my God, look at that blue car.
And it also validates the track listing and explains more about what goes on there. So it's important for tracks to still be doing those press releases and getting them to media like me and you so that we can give them free publicity. We're going to step aside. We'll be back with more with Scott Kozak right after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show here on PowerTube TV. I encourage all of you throughout the week to pop on over to our Steering Wheel Nation page on the PowerTube TV website. We've got 24/7 streaming shows here. So if you missed some of the episodes, great opportunity to watch them again or watch them for the first time. And we're also going to be adding more programming into that streaming channel as we go through the season. This segment brought to you by Ultimate QM. If you want to get your child or children into motorsports, quarter midget racing is a safe and affordable way to do it, either on a local or a national basis. And Ultimate QM is not only a winning combination, and you'll see a lot of the recent winners riding Ultimate QM chassis as we talk about this. And it is a family-owned business here in Mooresville, North Carolina. Andy Loden is the owner of that, along with his wife Stephanie and son Nick. And Nick has won over 180 quarter midget races, is now up in the late model class. So Ultimate QM winners ride Ultimate QM chassis. UltimateQM.com. And we bring Scott Kozak back in now and talk about the survey that you took last year of over, 12,000 race fans. This was a really interesting survey that you did. Just take a minute or so and tell us about the background of this.
Absolutely. So we called it our 2023 Favorite Tracks Survey. And between the middle of November of 23 and the middle of January of 24, we spent money making sure that race fans saw it. And it started off basically asking race fans a simple question: is what's your favorite grassroots racetrack? And we kind of made sure that we told people, hey, when we say grassroots, we mean holds local racing at least once a month with local classes, not just, a one and done national touring oval or whatever. So we had about 12,000 people engage the survey, and when all was said and done, just under 500 tracks were named. And let's not fool ourselves; it is a popularity contest, right?
Oh, sure.
The reality is that people who feel passionate about their tracks voted for their track and shared the survey, and that's the most important thing. So what we did is we ended up naming the fan favorite track in every state. All 49 states, because unfortunately, there's no grassroots track in Rhode Island. There's a couple of pay-per-play go-kart tracks, but we don't count those. I
love Rhode Island, but there's not much Rhode Island in Rhode Island.
There's not much land in Rhode Island anymore. So that was a great thing to do. And then we rewarded all the favorite tracks in each state with the ability to post their race dates on Get in the Stands, which is normally like a $40 a month investment for them to be able to do that, so that we drive traffic to their race dates. But so we've been able to get 50 tracks named the fan favorite for each of their states. But beyond that, we didn't just ask what's your favorite track. We wanted to learn what grassroots race fans are doing,
Okay.
right? What are they actually doing when it comes to their fan behavior? And we ask them, how many times do you go to the track? We ask them, how far will you drive? How many different tracks have you been to? Are you a dirt fan or a paved fan? Are you a drag racing fan or a NASCAR fan? And we were able to kind of really get this great picture of who race fans are and what they care about, which is, that's one of the most important things, is just understanding that data, because it really helps us to help racetracks understand who not just who their customers are, but who their potential customers are.
Yes. Okay. So let me just share a few of the responses here. We're going to do this by category, and then we'll get Scott to give us 30 seconds or so on the back end. So let's start with how race fans go to races. So here are some of the stats that Scott learned in this survey. About 12,000 race fans responding. Only about 9% of fans go to the races alone. I'm one of the 9%ers sometimes, and I just find it fun because I spend so much time working at tracks. It's kind of fun.
I am too, Tom.
Yes. It's kind of fun just to go as a fan once in a while and just have a hot dog and a drink in the stands and enjoy it. 26% of fans go with one other person, which would be a group of two. 40% of fans go with two or three others, a group of 3 or 4. And 25% of fans go in a group of 5 or more people. Now, what we can learn from this, Scott, is that if you're a track owner, the opportunity there, we can kind of look and say, well, the bulk of this data group, 40% go with 2 or 3 others. So 3 or 4 fans into your stands. So you start adding that up and you think tickets and concessions and maybe novelty or whatever. That's a very interesting stat.
Yeah, so I've turned this into a webinar that I do for tracks. We've done a couple of sessions a couple of months ago. We're going to roll out some more this fall. Good. Or not this fall, but over the summer. As tracks are in kind of the summer doldrums and they feel, a little bit, maybe frustrated or just trying to crunch through the season, because it can get really long for all these promoters who are just, they're overworked, they're underappreciated, they're under-resourced, and what we want to do is give them that information. But yeah, basically what it means is, and I ask these racetracks when I do these trainings, I say, how confident are you that if you can get one new person to your track, that they're going to have a good time and they're going to want to come back? And without a doubt, every track is pretty confident that they're able to do that. So what the data tells us then is, if a racetrack can get one new person into the stands each week, and they turn that person into somebody who comes back the average of 3.2 times a year, over a 15-week season, that's $5,000 more in revenue when you add up the fact of admissions, concessions, and anything else they might buy. And we do that math based on 2 adults and 2 children, because usually children are less expensive than adults. And in every single case, what we have found is that the average group of 3.4 people go into a track, and we've done this with tracks all over the United States. That average group is worth, and on one night, is worth between $101 and $108 to the track. Wow.
Yeah,
and if that's a new fan, and if they come back 3 times, that's $300. Yep. And if another fan comes in next week and for the first time and comes back again, that's another $300. Yep. It really starts to add up
quickly.
Really quick.
Yeah.
Without even realizing, oh my God, one fan a week can make a big difference.
Sure can. And just an aside before we go to the next category here, just a final thought here. That one fan, even if you let them in free, is going to eat something. So better you have a fan sitting in that seat, even if they didn't pay anything to get in, because they're going to eat, than it is to not have them there. Let's talk about race fan behaviors here. I was interested in some of these, and I'll read through the stats here, and then we can spend just a minute talking about it, because we've got to get through this quickly. 72% of fans went to their favorite track 4 or more times. Now that's significant. That's 3/4 of the survey went to their favorite track 4 or more times. in a year. 66% of fans' favorite tracks are less than 50 miles away. Again, talking about the localized fan base. But here's the kicker. 83% of fans went to more than one grassroots track, and 41% went to 4 or more different tracks. 80% of fans are willing to drive more than 50 miles to see a race. That's also a telling stat about marketing regionally, and over 45% would drive 51 to 200 miles to a grassroots track to see a race. So again, limiting the marketing to the local area, not wise. Market regionally or even across your state, because you can catch a lot of fans that way too. Just really interesting stuff. Give you about a minute here.
It just reinforces that tagline that we have of wherever you live or wherever you're traveling to or through, race fans will travel to see good racing. And it's up to racetracks to get the word out beyond the people that they're already talking to be able to let them know, to let more people know what's going on at their track, so that they can bring them in and invite them and turn them into a loyal fan who's going to come back 3.4 times a year.
That's exactly right. And then finally, different types of fans. This is the one I love. Of people who identify themselves as dirt track oval fans, 21% also went to paved ovals last year, which would be 2023, and 10% to drag strips. Now, for paved oval fans, and this is where my dirt audience is going to clap, 46% of paved oval fans went to dirt ovals and 12% went to drag strips. Now, for drag racing fans, it's even better. 50% of drag racing fans went to dirt oval and 46% went to paved oval races. And so what that tells us is that if you're a short track fan, generally you're just looking for great racing and you're not afraid to add some variety into your life.
Absolutely. And where that question comes from is the one question we ask people is, what's your favorite form of racing to watch, whether it's in person or on TV? And, you know, race fans are race fans. You know, I go back to the original racingin.com logo and I had it on the back of the hat, for fans of fast.
I love it.
Right. That's it. There's not much more to be said, is that race fans are race fans. And if they know what's out there as opportunities to get in the stands, then head to getinthestands.com and find one of those places to go.
Well, and it's just great to look through it and see what different tracks are out there. And I think people, and I know I've looked through it and picked an area of the country and found 3 or 4 tracks I'd never heard of. Like, it's just fun to do the research and see what's out there in different places. And when I think about the fact that in the state of Pennsylvania alone, motorsports is a $2 billion, with a B, billion-dollar yearly economic impact to the state. And most of that is the type of tracks that we're talking about here, because the only big track they have is Pocono, and it only runs twice a year. So these are go-kart tracks. These are short ovals, paved dirt, road courses, that kind of thing. $2 billion. And that's just in Pennsylvania alone. So getinthestands.com is legit, and all of you should go check it out. Again, it's free. And if you're a racetrack, go look for yourself and claim that page, because you got to put the information in there. Fans are, people are traveling all the time. You never know. Even if you get 2 or 3 fans out of it over the course of a year, you paid for the cost of the sort of elevated offerings that Scott has in terms of being able to put your press releases in and such. It is a very nominal fee compared to the work that goes into it. I know, because I'm in the same business, but it can be a great service for you. So, and a great way for you to connect with fans that again, maybe they tune into your live stream after that. And, you can benefit from fans from all over the country.
You know what, you mentioned Pennsylvania, 64 racetracks in the state of
Pennsylvania. There you go.
I mean, and Pennsylvania's a pretty big state, but I mean, if you look at the state track map, you'll see them as far northeast as, Erie Speedway in Erie, Pennsylvania. You got, places like Hamlin Speedway in East Side. You've got, Creekside Raceway Kart Club.
Yep.
We've got everything in here. And that's the thing is, what people don't realize is the value that grassroots racing provides. And, in less than 30 seconds, if someone goes to a NASCAR race, they're seeing one race over the course of a day that's 200 or 300 laps long, yep. Right? But if they go to a grassroots racetrack and the average family spends $100 or so, they're going to see 5 classes of racing. Each of those classes is going to have 2 heat races and a feature. So you've got 15 complete green flag to checker races for about $100 to $110. And that includes food and beverage for 2 parents and 2 kids. You can't get a much better entertainment value than that. And I think that that's what the grassroots world needs to do better at, is getting the message out about the value of the entertainment experience, because it really is fun.
Yeah, it really is. There's nothing like a good Saturday night short track race. Scott Kozak, getinthestands.com is the website. Totally free to go check it out. Go look at it. And if you're at racetrack and you're in there, claim it. And we'll have Scott back again on a future show. Thanks for being on, Scott. We're going to step aside. When we come back, Tyler Dayton's going to join us. We're going to talk some hot topics here on the Tom Baker Show.
Thanks, Tom.
Attention track and series owners. Elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show, and this is the part of the show that I always enjoy the most, when we can welcome our co-host Tyler Dayton into the show once again and talk hot topics. And we've got a really hot topic to start with here. Kyle Larson was reinstated into the Cup Series playoffs. Now, a little bit of background for those of you who may not know. Of course, Kyle ran the Indy 500, and because that got rain delayed, it prevented him from getting to Charlotte in time to start the Coca-Cola 600. And NASCAR has a rule that says you have to attempt to start all 36 races in order to qualify for the playoffs. Well, the question then became, does Kyle Larson get a waiver, which basically means we forgive you and reinstate his playoff status? And the question here is, should this ever have been a question? Tyler Dayton, you get first shot at this.
Yeah. First of all, thank goodness, right? That this is all over with.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Past couple weeks have been just out of control, with everybody fighting back and forth whether he should get one or he shouldn't get one. I was always in the opinion of that he should have gotten one, because NASCAR has always given them to everybody else that's applied for them. So I read a really cool stat that 36 waivers have been applied. People have applied for 36 waivers, and 33 of them have been granted by NASCAR. So there's only been 3 times ever since the waivers have become a thing that NASCAR has said no. So and that's through drivers getting suspended for on-track misconduct, drivers getting injured in other forms of motorsports that aren't NASCAR. Obviously Chase Elliott when he got hurt skiing or snowboarding. So it was really never in my mind that NASCAR would deny him a waiver, but it sounds like to me that it took this long because there was a real possibility that they were thinking about denying him a waiver.
Yeah, you'd think. I mean, the discussion took a while, so somebody wasn't sure, and somebody wanted to sort of, because again, and I've heard a couple of different NASCAR officials actually say, this was a new situation. We hadn't had this situation where a driver actually missed a race start to run another race. And so I get that. I get that that's new. But, my take on this, and I wrote a column about this on Steering Wheel Nation, my take on this is should have never been a question and should have been actually known ahead of time that this was going to be done if it needed to be. And here's why. And here was my point with the column. Number one, let's look at some evidence here that I use to kind of form my opinion. The first is that this year's Indy 500 got over 5 million views. 5 million views on TV. The Coke 600 got just over 3 million. Now, we can probably logically deduce that some of that gap is because the Indy 500 was delayed and the race was still going on when the Coke 600 started. So you would logically assume from that some of those fans would have been watching the start of Charlotte if not for the delay in the 500. I would also, though, add that it would be logical to assume that some of those fans were Kyle Larson fans who didn't care about the 600 until Kyle Larson was finished with his IndyCar race, right? The Indy 500 is the biggest race in the USA, without question. Okay, it is bigger than the Coke 600. Here is another stat to support that. 70% of the fans who watch the Indy 500, this according to IMS President Doug Bowles, don't watch another IndyCar race all year. And if I'm IndyCar, it is crazy. I couldn't believe that. And if I'm IndyCar, that is annoying me worse than a toothache, honestly. How do we get those fans to watch more IndyCar racing? I'll throw you a hint. More big tracks, please. Right. That's really what needs to happen here. Now, here's another interesting stat. Do you know who sold the most merchandise? Which of the 33 starters at Indy this year sold the most merchandise at Indy during the month of May?
The non-IndyCar driver, Kyle Larson.
That's correct. And this is an IndyCar stat. So, again, the Larson effect is all over this. It has been from the beginning of his first test at Indy to the time he arrived at Charlotte in his fire suit, ready to finish the Coke 600 and do his job, but NASCAR never restarted the race. So, in my opinion here, when you look at this in total, the Larson effect is all over it, and both Indy and NASCAR benefit greatly from the idea of drivers doing the double. Now, if they had denied this waiver, which again, they have a rule that says they can, but if they had denied this waiver, you would have never seen another driver do a double again. And the tragedy of that would have been Kyle Busch wants to do it. Ryan Blaney wants to do it next year. Christopher Bell wants to do it, but he wants to wait till he's kind of had more time in Cup and kind of gotten his Cup career where he wants it to be, which is fine. He's still young. And of course, McLaren's already said we want Kyle Larson back. There's a big surprise, right? So to me, this is not even an issue, and NASCAR should just, I don't think you need to change the waiver rule or do anything to the rule. You just need to say, look, if you're going to do the double at Indy, we support you, number one. You've got a waiver if you need it, number two, because we understand that the big picture of this is that we get more eyeballs out of this and more mainstream media coverage. And at the end of the day, eyeballs bring sponsors. And that's my thought on this. Okay, next topic. Now, this saga ought to have its own reality show, because this has been going on for it feels like years. The ongoing saga of Dale Jr. wants a charter, doesn't want a charter, wants to run Cup, doesn't want to run Cup, doesn't want to have a Cup team. Dale has consistently said for the last at least year or two that, too expensive, just can't justify doing that. Okay, well, on Dale Jr.'s download this week, Dale Jr. says he and Kelly are still at the table when it comes to purchasing a Cup Series charter. He's kind of changed his narrative a little bit about this, and he's saying that maybe under certain circumstances, big investor, whatever, that kind of thing, I'll give you first thought. First to tell us your thoughts about this one. Do you believe this would ever actually happen?
Now that I guess his opinion has shifted some, I believe that it could be a possibility. If you would have asked me 2 months ago, I would have told you no, because 2 months ago he was still saying that it was too expensive.
Yeah.
Download listeners were pretty used to hearing and asking the question of when are you going to buy one? When are you going to buy one? And it was always too expensive. Not too expensive. And now it seems like that we could have a real possibility of him and Kelly expanding to a Cup Series team. I think that there's going to have to be a lot that happens in terms of charter price, big partner coming in to help with that. But I think that would be really, really good for the sport.
Here's what Dale said that makes me believe, after hearing the download, that maybe the door's open here and maybe something's going on in the background that he hinted at without being able to say. Okay, we know, if you follow NASCAR, you know that Dale has now acquired a certain trademark, a certain copyright trademark. Well, we know that it is the actual number 8, the look, okay, of his first Cup car, the Budweiser car. We know that he has purchased that. Dale Sr.'s wife, Teresa, let it go and gave up the rights to it. So now he's potentially got a number, and you say, well, wait a minute. Childress has that with Kyle Busch. Richard Childress wouldn't deny Dale Jr. to use it, I don't think, if Dale wanted to use it and have a Cup car. But here's the other piece of this that's interesting. Dale Jr. said that, well, we've talked to some other teams about potential partnerships, but he said that could mean that we sort of give up ownership of the team and don't really have any or much of the decision making. And now you're basically putting out money that you're never going to get back. Okay, it's a different way of looking at how Junior comes into Cup. So, I mean, this now opens up many doors of possibility. And I know that Junior loves to sort of stir the pot a little. He's been known to do that in the past. And I will still say that I will believe that Dale Jr. is going to be in Cup when I see the announcement that says he is. But you have to take this somewhat more seriously, like this might be a change of heart, and maybe there's something in the background we don't know. It's fun because Junior has a hard time keeping secrets. He likes to just sort of tease it. And, it's like, when you're a kid, money burns a hole in your pocket. You want to go spend it. Dale Jr. is sort of like that in some ways with big news. He always wants to tease it out there. And it's fun. So we'll see where this goes, but this is really intriguing. Okay. Kevin Harvick is in the news because Kevin Harvick is going to strap into a Kevin Harvick International late model to run the Cars Tour Rained Out event at North Wilkesboro that's been rescheduled for the beginning of August. Now, again, for those who don't know, the Cars Tour is what's called a super late model series. It has a late model stock division and a pro late model, so I guess I shouldn't call it a super series. But 2 types of late model stock cars. It's a Mid-Atlantic / Southeast regional series here in the U.S. They have actually a West Coast series that's been started now that Kevin owns and is kind of overseeing. Kevin Harvick strapping back into his late model to run North Wilkesboro. What do you think?
I think for one, he's gonna have a good time.
Yes.
And on the other hand, I think he's gonna get his butt kicked.
Wow. Okay.
Because Dale Jr. has also had a hard time when it comes to the Cars Tour races he's run of just getting worn out by these local guys and these guys that run every week. They ran in Cup for so long, and A lot of these guys and these kids that are coming up now, they got a lot more seat time, and they've got simulation time and iRacing, and they have a lot of laps underneath them. So, and we see it, in the Cars Tour pretty much every race that they run. It's just always a really good show. There's always some really, really good racing. Those guys are fast. So, you got Carson Kvapil out there who's one of the best probably in the series, and obviously Butterbean doing really well.
And
so I think Kevin's going to have a really good time. I think it's really good for the Cars Tour also for him as an owner to get out there, part owner to go out there and, see what it's like to run with those guys and get a little internal feedback. I would say
3-wide finish in the last Cars Tour event at I think it was Langley, and Carson Kvapil finishing third there. Connor Hall got the win. Brent Cruz second in one of Harvick's cars, the 29. So yeah, that should be a lot of fun. I think Kevin will do better than you think. He's going to go test. And Kevin is just out of a race car. Unlike Dale, Kevin's been racing right up to the end of last year. Got some time in the Hendrick car for Kyle at Wilkesboro there. I think Kevin will do just fine, but he's going to have a lot of fun either way. We're going to step aside. When we come back, we'll have more with Tyler, more hot topics after this.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the show, and we've got Tyler Dayton still with us, still talking hot topics. This hot topic, to me, is a head scratcher. But in the day and age of social media, there are people actually talking about whether Kyle Larson is in the same conversation with Max Verstappen if you're talking best driver in the world. Now, Jenna Fryer wrote a column, and I'm going to just quote a couple of things from this column. First of all, I think this is, Alex Rossi, I think. IndyCar racer Alex Rossi saying that I would say they're on the same level, which is like, yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Now, Tyler, do you think this is a thing?
I think I have to agree with Rossi. My reasoning is we all know that Max is incredible, but Max is incredible in an F1 car. I haven't seen Max run a whole lot of other stuff. He doesn't do any oval stuff, doesn't do any dirt stuff. He's never jumped in. He's run Formula One. He's never jumped in an Indy car on an oval. Yeah. Larson does it all. Larson's had some time in IMSA. Larson he's run the 500 now. One of the best sprint car racers I've ever seen. One of the best cup drivers that I've ever seen. He's good on ovals and road courses. It's hard to say that Max is above Kyle when Kyle is been at the top in pretty much every motorsport that he's run up to this point.
Well, okay. For me, this is akin to the argument that, my generation used to have when we were kids about which superhero could beat up the other one, right? Like this to me is so subjective. And here's why. You did make a couple of statements here that I agree with. Okay, first of all, Max Verstappen's only driven a Formula One car. Well, not so much. He grew up in karts, raced, came through the Formula ladder. So he's driven a number of different cars, and he's run on some of the toughest, most challenging courses in the world. Okay, now, Kyle Larson. And this is where, again, Kyle Larson's a short tracker who races NASCAR basically because it's obviously the biggest series in the U.S. and it helps him to be able to finance his short track racing. Let's face it, he's a short tracker. So yes, he's run all kinds of short track cars on ovals. He ran the Rolex 24, did well there. Kyle has shown well in the Indy 500. He's shown well in NASCAR, been a champion, won a bunch of races. So for me, this is just a non-starter. Now let's hear what Kyle Larson has to say about this. Here's the quote. "Not in an F1 car," Larson replied. "I can't beat him in an F1 car, and I bet, and this is interesting, I bet he can beat me in an Indy car just based off his street and road course experience." So where could Larson hold his own against the Dutchman? He says, I hope I can beat him in the sprint car. He thought the entire conversation was a hypothetical, i.e. a waste of time. And so do I. He goes, "I don't even understand how this could even be a thing. If you don't run multiple disciplines, how can anyone say you're the best?" Right? Now, that would basically, because he ran multiple disciplines, Verstappen not so much, right? But here's my thought. It's like saying, who's better? Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt, Richard Petty. Okay, they've all won 7 Cup titles. My answer to that is, in their own era, they're all icons. Okay, you can't say that Jimmy Johnson wouldn't have beaten Dale Earnhardt or wouldn't have beaten Richard Petty because he never raced in it. Like it's an invalid comparison, and there's no way to prove it. It's somebody's opinion. This to me is silly. Look, Kyle Larson to me is almost alien in his feel for a car. Okay, but until I see him go race Monaco or Silverstone or somewhere and beat Max Verstappen, and until I see Max Verstappen come and race NASCAR or go race IndyCar or go get in the sprint car, I'm not even entertaining this discussion. But
I'd like to see a driver swap between the two, like the old Tony Stewart Hamilton at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, but that
driver swap, that'd be awesome to see.
That's not a race, though.
No,
but it would be interesting.
It would be cool to see them swap cars. Yeah,
I think it'd be fun. But no, it's you can't even go there. Okay, last topic. The final episode of Race Hub aired this week. Now again, NASCAR's daily show on Fox FS1. It's gone. First of all, Tyler, were you a regular watcher of Race Hub?
I can't say that I was.
Interesting.
I would catch it. Maybe if there was going to be a cool guest, something like that on it that I wanted to hear from. But with all the driver podcasts and stuff that are out right now, I feel like everybody listens to all the driver podcasts and all the shows. So, I think maybe that's the feeling that Fox was getting from that, is they weren't seeing the ratings that they were before with everybody having the download and actions and all these podcasts are out here now, and they're all drivers that are giving their input and they're bringing guests on. And I just think that it run its course. I think it's sad, that we're not going to have a cable, a daily show anymore, but maybe in the future, maybe a streamed show.
See, that's where I think
like that will come along.
Yeah. You'll see NASCAR at some point, I believe, come out with something that's akin to it. But, you know, I think, first of all, airing it at 6 p.m. Eastern, terrible time slot. But, you know, nonetheless, man, I celebrate that whole crew. It was a great show. I watched it every night as often as I could be still for it. I would watch it, and sad to see it go. And with that, we thank you, Tyler, for being on again, and we'll talk some more in the next show.
I'll see you then. Thank you very much for having me.
Time now to celebrate the lives of two motorsports legends, each in their own way. First of all, Jerry Gappens, who was a longtime motorsports executive, passed away at 63 years old. Now, Jerry followed his father, who was a sprint car racer, and ended up spending some time promoting at Terre Haute into the sport before he started to promote, and started at a little bit of a dirt track in Indiana called Gas City, and then went to Eldora Speedway, which is where I would argue that Jerry did some of the best work of his career. And I want to read a quote from Tony Stewart, who owns Eldora, about Gappens. He says, "Jerry came to Eldora with a wealth of experience and an equal amount of humility, and no job was too big or too small. His attention to detail was impressive, and he made sure the fan experience at Eldora was exceptional, always finding ways to make improvements with each and every event that he oversaw. As Eldora's general manager, Gappens oversaw the track's second Eldora Million for dirt late models in 22, and just last year he ushered in the Dirt Track World Championship's arrival, the track's first Lucas Oil late model dirt series event." Parnelli Jones passed away as well at 90 years of age. Born Rufus Parnell, Parnelli became a nickname at a young age, and he used it on his phony ID to go racing, about 4 years under the 21-year-old minimum age when he needed to be 21. Known for his ability to wheel anything from Baja to Indy cars, Parnelli is probably best remembered for winning the 1963 Indy 500 in a front-engine roadster owned by J.C. Agajanian. Now, that's the same year that Colin Chapman first showed up with a rear-engine Lotus that would eventually become a revolutionary force at Indy. Jones led 167 out of 200 laps that day, and then later on, after the winner's luncheon was over, was allegedly confronted by fellow racer Eddie Sachs, who accused him of leaking oil on the track during the race, which caused Sachs to spin out. The pair began a verbal sparring match, and legend has it that Sachs called Jones a cheater one too many times and got a knuckle sandwich between his teeth for the trouble. Jones will be remembered around the world as a world-class racer who could wheel anything that you put him in. He was 90 years old. Our prayers and condolences to the Gappens and the Jones families and loved ones. That's it for this week's Tom Baker Show. For more exclusive content and stories, we invite you to join us at steeringwheelnation.com and on our 24/7 streaming page right on the watchpowertubetv.com website. You can visit TrackTune Live, tracktune.live, to check out how you can sign your tracker series up to hear all of the PA action right through their phone or device. Also, check out ultimateqm.com for all the info on how to get your young ones started in quarter midget racing. Winners ride Ultimate QM chassis. And follow us, of course, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Wheel Nation, and on Steering Wheel Nation on LinkedIn. Until next time, I'm Tom Baker. Thanks for watching. See ya on the next Tom Baker Show.
Like this show? Want more? Then head to WatchPTTV.com, the new 100% free PowerTube TV streaming network. Home of the best classic and new motorsports racing and build shows on the web.